Hey, Guy Powell here, and welcome to the next episode of the Backstory on Marketing and AI. If you haven't already done so, please visit prorelevant.com and sign up for all of these episodes and podcasts. As you may know, I am the upcoming author of the AI Marketing Machine, and a lot of this content will be built into that, and the learning that we've gotten from this series of interviews will be a huge piece of that book, and I know that there's already a handful of big nuggets in there. If you want to find out more information about that, go to marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. So today I'm interviewing Andreas Duess. He's with Six Seeds Consulting. And let me tell you a little bit about him. He is the co-founder of Six Seeds Consulting, and he helps CPG, consumer packaged goods companies, leverage AI to reduce friction, accelerate product development, and drive market success. He's a frequent speaker and writer, and he also lectures at the Ivy Business School. And he has a book as well. His book, Do More with Less, releases due in the spring of 2025. So fantastic. There's always a lot of good content, and I know after this interview, you're going to want to also make sure you sign up for an early copy of his book. So with that, Andreas, welcome. So good to have you today.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your backstory on AI and marketing?
Yeah, my backstory is I was born in Germany, moved to the UK when I was 18, where I went to school, and then I found myself working in technology, worked with early Google, Cisco, and one of the people who were in the companies we were working with was Autonomy, which was an early AI company founded by Mike Lynch, who unfortunately recently passed away in a sailing accident in the Mediterranean. He sold his company to HP for billions of dollars. Very successful guy, and that was my first exposure to AI and what AI could do. And of course, at the time, it was very limited in comparison to what can be done today, but I still found it fascinating. I then met a girl who's now my wife, and we ended up living in Toronto in Canada. And I accidentally founded a food marketing agency that grew out of a chance introduction. And we grew this to 36 people, offices in Montreal and in Toronto. And I applied a lot of the learning from my tech days to the marketing world there, single-minded focus, building deep expertise, be part of the industry you're serving rather than the marketing industry. And about 5 years ago, I got a message from a friend of mine, and she said to me, I want to show you something, but you like it, but you can't talk about it. And that was an early large language model. And that was two things. It was absolutely awful, and it was very, very clearly the future. And I'm old enough to remember when digital took over from film in the production of commercials, TV commercials. And digital was awful, and people laughed about it, and it was awful, and people laughed about it, and it was awful, and people laughed about it. And then one day it wasn't awful anymore. And 6 months later, everybody had switched digital. Like, it was an absolutely rapid switch once that change had happened, and once that quality threshold had been achieved. And so I could see the same thing happening to AI. It was very clear. Even 5 years ago, it was clear to me. And so I went home, and I think, if there's any founders, any entrepreneurs on listening to your podcast, I think everybody who's a founder is familiar with the 3 o'clock in the morning panic attacks and founder sweats, where you question everything you've ever done. And I certainly was doing that, where I was thinking, like, all this work we've put into this company, will the value still be there? Will AI take over a lot of the things that we're currently charging our clients money for? And about a year later, I got an offer to buy I was a 50% shareholder at that time, to buy my shares out. It was a good offer, good clean sale. And I decided to take the offer and release the value in this company while it was still at a level that makes, where it was meaningful. And then sort of to step back and see what I wanted to do next. And then after this sort of sale, where there's celebration and people congratulate you and, we have a successful exit. I surprised myself by, I call it now walking the valley of irrelevance, and sort of going from somebody who had an amount of influence and you get invited to talk at events and all those kind of things to somebody who people were a little bit cautious about whether they want to take your calls because they think you want something from them, and used that time to work to enlarge my network. And I was lucky enough to finally, to talk to people and get introduced from my previous life to people who helped me figure out which problems we were solving. And so what we settled on at the end of the day, and you will know this, in the US, in North America, the failure rate for new CPG products is around 82%. It's a bit lower if you happen to be Kraft Heinz and PepsiCo, and it's a bit higher if you are an individual entrepreneur bringing grandma's pierogies to market. And this has always been something that had been bugging me because the annual loss to the US economy is around $24 billion. And the annual loss to you, Guy, and me as grocery buyers around $200 a year out of our pockets that go towards servicing that cost. So we started with some partners I had met along the way who were sharing similar expertise and similar knowledge about food and technology. We started brainstorming how can we solve this problem. And that's how Six Seeds was born. And what we did, we started looking at the data that people were using to make decisions. And we found significant flaws with the data. It was old, it was expensive, it was performative. Mm-hmm. And so we said, well, what data can we find that perhaps can solve this issue? And so we started talking to data partners, a wide variety of partners. And now we started getting data in from retailers. So we know what people are actually buying, not Nielsen data, but we get the data from credit card companies. We get it from food delivery companies, the Instacarts of this world, etc. We have access to data from food service. So that's different partners. So they supply us with data from Uber Eats and other delivery services. Then we have home data. So if you have a smart fridge in your home, chances are we know what's in your fridge, and that, the lettuce you bought 3 weeks ago that you still haven't been eaten is still sitting in the back of your fridge, but all the ice cream has miraculously disappeared. And then this entire thing gets cross-referenced against the public conversation, social media, magazines, what have you. And so what we manage to achieve by working with, it's about 1 trillion data points. We have it from North America, Europe, India, Australia, some South American countries. What we managed to achieve was that we managed to close what we call the say-do gap. And the say-do gap basically means people will tell you one thing and then do something entirely different, right? You ask people, what kind of coffee do you drink? And it's like, oh yeah, it needs to be fair trade and it needs to be organic and it needs to be all of these things. And then when you look at what people are really doing, main purchase drivers are availability, affordability, and does it taste good? So simple as that. So what we do on top of this data, we have an AI layer that allows us to do 3 things for our clients. Number 1 is produce products people want to buy. Number 2, marketing people want to interact with. And number 3, have a company that investors want to put money in. Those are the 3 problems we solve for our clients. Sorry, that was a very long story, but it is.
No, that's perfect. That makes sense. I really like that. Although I do have some questions for you for another time about the 82%, failure rate of new products. But today I want to talk about AI. So how do you succeed with AI without, losing your humanity?
Yeah, I think that's probably, and I don't know what kind of feedback you're getting from people, but this is one of the questions that people ask me the most, right? Will I be pushed out? Will I still have a job? Will I lose my job? Where's the value in the things I bring? And I think the thing that is specific to AI is that we have released a tool of immense power on a completely unprepared humanity. Right? When ChatGPT first came out and people were losing their mind about the things it could do and some of the things it couldn't do, nothing like that has ever been in existence. And traditionally, when we interact with computers, we have been taught that there is a right way and there's a wrong way to interact with a computer. And if you do it wrong, you'll break it. You'll do something wrong. You get the wrong results, or you break your computer, or things go badly wrong. And of course, with the AI tools that we have access to, there are many, many different ways to interact with them, and they're all right. So the opposite of a good idea in AI can be another good idea. And there may well be 10 more good ideas, and none of them is any less good than any of the other ones. Very often there is no right way of doing this. And I think one of the very first things that you have to understand if to be successful in AI is the importance of, we use the words internally, and they're a bit of a mouthful, but I'm going to use them: meaning making and sense making. And meaning making is uniquely human. Meaning making is, I like blueberries because blueberries remind me of my grandma's blueberry cake. And there is an emotional charge in there, and there is emotional payload in there. So meaning making is humans deciding what matters to them for a variety of reasons. And those reasons can, but don't have to be pure. They can be purely emotional. They can be a mixture of rational and emotional. It doesn't matter. It's a human decision. That's something I want to pursue. So it's important that as a human being, you set a desired outcome. This is what I wish to achieve for reasons of my own. And then you use the AI to create sense making. So, let's say you are a food entrepreneur or you are a business entrepreneur, and you say, I wish to bring this product to market. And my main motivation is, let's say, my kid has celiac and my kid can't eat gluten, which is a very, very common founder story that people are solving their own problems. So I want to bring a product to market that my kids can eat and they can have fun and they can have birthdays and all that kind of stuff. Now that's meaning making. Now let's use AI to understand the market, to understand how this works, to understand recipe creation, to understand how to launch a business successfully. And so AI's job is to take the human meaning making and support it and push it and give it wings. It is not to replace humanity. And when I see people being disappointed in AI's performance, where they say, well, I tried it and it didn't work for me, it's typically for two reasons. They try to go tactical really quickly and say, write me this and do this for me. But instead of what they need to do, they need to work with AI and say, look, here's where I want to end up. I want to, I want to write a book, like, in your case and in my case as well. I want to write a book, and in this book, I want to tell the world about my experience and the following things. What can you do to help me get there? And I think that is the main differentiator between good outcomes in AI and bad outcomes in AI. I read this somewhere, this isn't me, but somebody said a while ago, they said, being successful in AI, like having good AI schools, is basically the skills of a good manager: delegation, clear explanations, individual strengths and weaknesses, division of labor, project management, clear feedback. Like when you interact with AI in that fashion, which is also the way you should interact with people, you get the best possible results out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding the consumer is like at the heart of what everybody needs to do. And so, how do you see AI to read, your consumers' minds? What are you seeing there that where AI can really help?
So big data was a difficult tool for most people to grapple with, right? If you needed to be a large company, you needed to have data analysts, you needed to have the back end available, you needed to have the data to put into the model in the first place in order for it to be useful. And for most small to medium-sized companies, that just wasn't there. But what AI has helped us to do, it allows us to interact with very large data sets and find the patterns within those data sets to a degree that previously just wouldn't have been possible. So for example, when we say, we have data flowing in from retail sales, and then we have data flowing in from Pinterest boards and from smart fridges, and then that gets cross-referenced. It allows us to get a really good idea between, what are the needs of a 35-year-old woman who works in tech in Austin, Texas, and a 60-year-old man who lives in New York City when it comes to, I don't know, rice or any food stuff or drink stuff, whatsoever. And we've collected the data that allows us to look into people's behavior and identify the things that matter to them. And that for us is where AI really, really, really shines, right? To have that sort of input. And it's You may say, well, that sounds a little bit creepy, but what it allows us to do, A, it's all anonymized. Like, we don't know what John or Jane are eating or drinking. Like, this is all anonymized data. It's a huge lakes of data where the individual data just completely disappears. And neither are we interested in it because we don't sell ads or anything like that. But what it allows us to do, it allows our clients to service their customers so much better than they were ever able to do this. During my university years, I worked as a line cook for a couple of years, and I still love cooking. Like, I'm the main cook in my family, and I cook for the people I love. And when I was 20, and we had a dinner party at our house or my house, dinner party invitation went like this: hey, Friday night, my house, dinner party. And now, 30 years later, the invitation sounds like this: hey, Friday night, my house, dinner party, what don't you eat? Right? What are you, vegan? Are you vegetarian? Are you pescatarian? Are you gluten free? Are you whatever it is? And I don't mind. This is not meant to be a slight against people. Like, I happily accommodate my friends. But the truth of the matter is that the food market, has never been more fragmented than it is today. Partially, I think, because people have never been as educated as they are today about food. They haven't thought about as deep about food than they're doing today. And so as a result, for retailers, that does two things. It opens up many opportunities to thrive in niches, absolutely. But it also makes it really difficult to grow to a degree where you have something that sort of, fits everybody, unless you're a cereal or a flour producer, et cetera, and all those kinds of things. And their AI can really help you to understand the people you want to service and to serve, and create products that make their lives better. And if you do that, if you make products that makes enough people's lives better, then it will gladly support your brand, gladly give you money, and you have a thriving business in your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And and that, I think, is the kind of the strategic use of AI, is to really understand at a very deep level, taking in all of this, structured and unstructured data, to understand, how it is that your consumers are making purchase decisions in your favor or against you. They're either switching to you or switching, away from you. And if I can use AI and this vast data that's becoming available, and if I can somehow connect it in a logical, valuable way, then I can really make a difference to make sure that that 82%, will go down. Hopefully, it'll go down much further, or then the other new products will grow much faster. And that, I think, is critical for success as anybody in marketing.
I give you a fun example of what this looks like in action. So one of the things that we started doing about a year ago, we started building AI-powered focus groups, people. And we started this out by getting people in a room, or not in a room, on a Zoom call, and we paid them $200 for 3 hours of their time, and then we asked them about 300 questions. And the questions were designed to help us build really rounded artificial personas. And then one of our associates figured out that we didn't actually have to do that, and that all this data was available, and we could actually build these rounded personas just from Google data and other data that we had access to. And then so now what we're doing, and let's say one of our clients is a rice company, and so what we can do for those guys is we can, and we have built 10 different personas, and they contain people who over-index for rice consumption in the US. So that would be Asian Americans, that would be Mexican Americans. They over-index for rice consumption. And we build these characters, and we know what matters to them. They're on all spectrums of personal income. They're on all spectrums of personal and political beliefs. And we then feed them, because we have this information, we then train the model with rice data, because we know what these different characters buy and where they buy it. And now, as a client, what I have an interface which I can interact with live data in an incredibly human fashion. The interface is voice controlled, so I'm not typing things anymore, and you do get a written copy of what's being said. But you can have a conversation with a AI generated persona about your product and about the things that matters to them. And so, people say, well, what about the accuracy? Stanford University, one of their pre-doctorate scientists, he actually ran an experiment on this. and he was running 1,000 digital personas against 1,000 human personas, and the overlap was 92%. So now you can interact, with digital people and ask them questions about your product.
Mm.
And one of the wonderful things is they have no ego, so they won't lie to you because they're entirely data driven.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you're talking about that. One of my buddies is a market research specialist, and he says, well, if you ask AI a question and you want to see whether that's going to be equivalent or similar to a real person answering that same question, how do you know which one is actually right? Because just like you're talking about, how they could be, their ego might be in the way, or they don't know how to communicate, or something else is in the back of their mind, and it's not how their minds are working when they're in the store. And so, the AI may actually be more accurate. That 92%, that 8% difference there may actually be wrong because the human is giving you the wrong answer.
Yeah, that
And
may very well
so,
happen.
yeah.
I've spoken to moderators about this who traditionally at the beginning were very against this. I was like, this is nonsense and it'll never work. And then you show them the outcomes and the numbers, and a lot of them were shocked and scared. But I think the ability to ask the right questions that a lot of researchers have, and where they're, again, meaning making, sense making, where they are asking the right kind of questions to tease the inside out, if anything, is becoming more important rather than less important. I apologize, I interrupted you there a second ago.
No, 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 that's all right.
But I think again we're coming to the what are humans good at, and how can AI accelerate and augment the speed in which we can be at our best.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that's fascinating too is, and there might actually be, some changes to the answer when you say what are humans good at when they're supported by AI, because that frees up, or enables other capabilities that might not have been there. And if it can, and one of the challenges to you as well, especially maybe in durables, maybe not so much in consumer packaged goods, but in durables or highly considered categories, the AI may end up starting to change the way consumers make decisions there, because it's giving that consumer a whole different wealth of information that they might not have had, or a different way to look at things as they're making that highly considered decision.
I think you're bringing up something really incredibly important. I believe it was Nietzsche. Don't kill me if it wasn't. It was one of the German philosophers who said, "We shape our tools, and then our tools shape us."
Oh, interesting.
Right? So if you have a hammer, if you have a saw, if you have a plow, I mean, I think the plow is probably the most important example of this, right? Because agriculture became a thing once the plow had been invented. So we shaped the tool, and then the tool shapes us. I think you are 100% correct in your observation that AI changes the way we operate as human beings. To give you an example, I find myself, and I'd love to hear your take on this, but I find myself talking to my computers an awful lot, well, to a degree I've never done before. And I started exploring this after ChatGPT brought out their advanced voice mode. And the first time this was really a thing for me was when I was in an event. And I write the newsletters for our company because I just share stuff that I think is important. I was in an event, and one of the speakers talked about something that was close to my heart and that I thought was interesting. And I thought to myself, that would make a great newsletter. Some of the things I've learned this evening with some of the things that I've already believed. And so it was a beautiful evening. I live downtown. I live really central. And I decided to walk home. And so it was about 45 minutes walk. I put my headphones on. I fired up ChatGPT and I said, look, I want you to listen to me. Here are some of the things that I've learned tonight. And here are some of the things that are important to me. And while we're walking here, I want you to help me to create the skeleton of a newsletter. And so we were walking home, and that was the first time that it was an absolute life changer for me, where I had my first experience of working with AI as if I was working with a digital coworker. And I've never stepped back from that way of working. By the time I arrived home at my house, I had a fully fleshed skeleton for a newsletter, structured, still needed some work. I always say it takes you to 80% and
Yeah.
2% of the time. Still needed some work, still needed some fleshing out, still needed thinking, but the structure was there. And I was thinking to myself, only about a year ago, I would have maybe jotted this down in a notebook or on my phone or whatever, and then I would have promptly forgotten about it because other things happen. But here it was already at such a stage that it was ready to be dealt with the next day in half an hour. And it was such for me, as you said earlier on, your observation that AI changes how we work. That for me was a core moment in how AI changed how I work.
Yeah, yeah. I've used it only once or twice, the voice mode. What I found is that I'm just so much better at typing and organizing my thoughts. I mean, certainly ChatGPT, or whatever, it does that for you, but it just seems to me that I can get a little bit, well, maybe a lot further faster, by typing it in as opposed to trying to speak it and say it. But I don't know, maybe, it's a training thing. So maybe I just need to train myself, kind of like, what you started to do in experimenting. Maybe I just need to do some more experimenting on that and be able to use that to get me further along in that, using the voice mode.
Well, or maybe your way of thinking, maybe the way your brain works and your learning works is just that you prefer the written word, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that. So that's the wonderful thing. It's not one size fits all, right? We can all, and I think this brings me back to what I said earlier on, right? Traditionally, there is a right way and a wrong way to use Excel. There is a right way and a wrong way to use Microsoft Words or Microsoft Teams. But with AI, I say, well, I like to talk to it, and you say, no, I think clearer when I'm typing. And there are certainly times in my life where, for me, the talking is always the initial dump of thoughts. And then when I'm organizing things afterwards and actually creating value, that's always done on the screen with the keyboard. But that's an example of how you can shape your tool to suit your purposes and your strengths, and I can shape the tool to suit my purposes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what else would you like to talk about on AI before we break here? We've got only a couple of minutes left, and I'm sure that AI and, especially in a strategic sense for marketers has a lot of, I don't know, a lot of developing, a lot of evolution to do. So I don't know, anything left that we need to discuss?
Yeah, I would say one of the most common feedbacks that I'm getting is that the people who are dissatisfied with the outcome when they're using AI are the people who are using it for tactics. They go and they say, oh, write me 10 LinkedIn posts or 10 Instagram posts or write me a marketing plan. And those attempts, more often than not, unsatisfactory because AI has not been given the sense-making guardrails that are all important for it to come to a satisfactory conclusion and to a strong conclusion. So I think, one of the things that's just so important to understand is don't outsource to AI. Don't outsource your thinking, don't outsource your desires, don't outsource your goals to AI. Understand that AI is a tool, but it's not a tool that's supposed to make you lazy. If anything, I think it allows you to think a lot more and work a lot harder. It just takes the boring stuff away, the find me information stuff and all those kinds of things. And I think that is one of the main differentiators between somebody who's good at using AI and isn't. I think for me, another core benefit that I absolutely love about AI is that it allows us to ask the what if questions. And if you're a scientist, if you believe in a scientific method of discovery, and again, this is not something I come up with, the most important words in science are not eureka, I found it. The most important words in science are, huh, that's funny. and, and AI can help us to look at the, that's funny moments and take a look at things because, what if questions in our daily lives when we're all working towards a goal, when we are having meetings and we're running our businesses, they're really easy to forget about. They're just something, don't have time for this. But let's say you're running a business and let's say you wake up or you're watching a movie with your wife at the end of the day. And all of a sudden you think to yourself, I wonder what's actually in that waste product we're currently paying somebody to ship out every month. And you say, you fire up Perplexity or ChatGPT or Gemini, what have you, and say, hey, I'm shipping out 50 tons of avocado peels each month, and I'm paying X number of dollars to have them removed. Is there anything in there I could sell? And within 10 seconds, the AI will come back. There are oils in there. There are vitamins in there. The beauty industry has use for this. The shampoo industry has use for this, just as an example. And by the way, here are some companies you might want to talk to, right? And all of a sudden, a brain fart, I hope I'm allowed to say this, or a shower thought has become something you can choose whether or not you go to work the next morning and you follow up, or you go to one of your team members and you say, hey, John, hey, Jane, I had this crazy thought. Here's some data on it. Is this something we should be looking at? Now, whether or not this is successful, who knows? But it allows you to ask those what if questions and explore things at a rapid tick.
Yeah, yeah, and I really like that. That is kind of like that. That's kind of funny. I really like that. That makes a lot of sense. Well, we've got a break, but I do have one last question for you, and that is, what advice would you give an up and coming new marketer?
Be a generalist. So I have three kids, they're all teenage boys, so sort of 12 and 14. And I'm going to recommend to all of them that when they go to university, that they study humanities, study languages, study philosophy, throw in some religious studies, understand what makes people tick, what makes humans human, and have that as a foundational understanding before you dive deep into specialization, because specialization isn't as valuable anymore than it used to be. There is still absolute value in there. I'm not, we still need specialists to push the barriers of human knowledge without a shadow of a doubt. But in jobs that you and I share, we're both in marketing. I was in a meeting recently with an SEO specialist, and I don't know much about SEO. It's not one of my things. And so that person sort of shared with me a lot of their knowledge. And then I sort of afterwards I thought, how long would it take me to get myself to that same level of knowledge? And so I did this as an experiment, and the answer was half a day, where I was confident that I had a very comparable sense of knowledge, and it was really all just LLMs helping me and working things out for me. So I think understand what makes humans human, understand the importance of humanity and human goals and human emotions to reach the next stage of where you want to go, and then understand how AI can help us get there. I think those are the really important things. And as I said, AI, I believe, will disappear. I think lots of people talk about the importance of prompting. I think it's complete nonsense. I think prompting is completely unimportant these days. For as long as you have a conversation with the AI, for as long as you don't expect it to have a definite answer to a single question, but that you understand that the best way to interact with AI is in a conversational setting. I think that's the tip I would give. Understand what makes people tick, understand what's important to people, and then use AI tools to help you uncover the needs and the product attributes and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you're right. The generalist is, and generalist not just as a generalist marketer, but generalist about the world, so to speak, and because all of that those people will have learned will help them to interpret what can now be done to 90% in AI. And so if they get hired as an SEO specialist, they can quickly kind of get up to speed, understand what the strategy and all the tactics are, and then they can, start to go off and execute. And then they can, do even more than that because they've got, a much broader education. Yeah, Andreas, that's awesome. I wish we could go on further, but really appreciate it today. Thank you so much for participating. I definitely learned something. I really like, a couple of things in there, and it really makes a lot of sense. So where can people reach you and learn more about your company?
Best place to find me is LinkedIn. My DMs are open, so if you want to talk to me, slide into my DMs. Say hello if you are interested in food and drink, if you need a speaker, if you need help implementing AI. And that's sort of another accidental business that we have. Our clients come to us frequently and say, look, you implemented this in your own company to such a degree. How can we implement this in ours? Not something we set out to sell as a service, but something that's becoming more and more important, I think, for us. So any of those things, come and talk to me. Or if you just need some advice, there's never a meter running. I always like to have conversations, and we're generous with our time.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And again, it's Andreas Duess and at Six Seeds Consulting. So look him up on AI, but look him up on LinkedIn. For the audience, definitely please stay tuned for many other videos in this series of the backstory on marketing and AI. And please visit marketingmachine.prorelevant.com and find out more about my book, The AI Marketing Machine. And that's going to be coming out here in the next couple months.
I'm
And
super
if you like
excited.
this,
I'm super excited to read it actually, and I hope I can get a signed copy from you.
you will definitely be able to get a signed copy, and we'll definitely send one out as soon as I have one myself. And
Wonderful.
absolutely. And to the audience again, if you like this podcast, please rate it with 5 stars. Andreas, thank you so much.
Thanks, Guy. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.